Say hello to a baker in a tall white hat with a T-H and a key. He looks very friendly, he's come for a chat. Who can this baker be?
I know, it's Keith Baker.
Dear Mr. Baker, your books are awesome. It must take you forever to make them. Do you ever have time for anything else, like sports? Your friend, Jeffrey.
Dear Jeffrey, I always find time for sports and other important things besides books. If I didn't, I'd have nothing to write about. I love riding my bike. I get fresh air, exercise, a chance to travel, and I can check out the world around me, all at the same time. And I've always loved other sports, like tennis, and swimming, and skiing. Then I discovered river rafting. I even got into scuba diving. You see, I had an idea for a book about a turtle who dives way down deep in the ocean to discover its secrets. I found a magical world full of color and mystery and gorgeous fish and marine life, but I still haven't figured out what the turtle discovers. Maybe Mrs. Kimball's class can help me. Children have such good ideas. This turtle is an idea for a story that I've been working with for a long, long time. He goes down to the very, very, very bottom of the ocean, and I don't know what he finds. What could he find at the bottom? What gave him that signal to come way down deep?
A treasure chest?
A whale?
Could you write down your thoughts and maybe do a little sketch or a little drawing and send them to me? Because you know I love getting letters. And it was a few years ago. I was living away from home, and I wasn't getting any mail. And so I got kind of discouraged. So one day I just made a letter for myself, and I put that in my mailbox. And then when I picked up this letter on my mailbox, I thought it would really be great to get a letter like this. But then I started thinking, well, who's it going to come from? And how does this letter get into my mailbox? And what's this letter going to say? So I thought about all those things, and I thought, and I started writing some thoughts down about that letter, and then I saw all these thoughts that I had written, and I decided to turn those thoughts into a story. And that became The Dove's Letter. The story starts one day when a dove leaves her nest. The dove flies through the forest, and she sees something strange on the ground. She's never seen anything quite like it. It's white and square, and it's just resting there on the forest floor. And so the dove flies down, and she finds this letter.
There it is! There's the dove! Look, he dropped the letter. Wow.
Oh, thank you. I think I know what this says. Lucia, would you like to read this?
So strong and high and true, like a dove, I wish my love could fly to you.
Who did you think the letter was for?
I think it was for the dove. But doves can't read.
Maybe they can.
That would be magic.
Well, I believe in magic.
You do? Wow. How do you do that?
For me, stories and pictures are magic. I love looking at artwork, especially the artwork of different people and different cultures. I spent hours and hours in a museum looking at the artwork of the people of Japan. When I looked at their paintings and drawings, that made me want to use some of their ideas in the stories that I wrote and the illustrations that I made. Here I can see some of the things that I love about Japanese art. The shapes are outlined with the black line, and I love the way that they've combined all sorts of patterns. The flower patterns, nature patterns, and geometric patterns, and some of the shapes are just flat color. In this painting, there are hundreds of people, and you can see them going about their daily lives. You can see so much detail in the buildings and so much detail in the plants. The Japanese people have a lot of respect for nature. This painting is a scroll. It tells a story. Lots of paintings tell stories. I especially love these waves. They almost look like clouds, but they are so graceful. And I love the bridge. You can see the way all the boards were put together. I tried to paint a bridge like this when I told the story, The Magic Fan. The story of Yoshi to me is a boy that is learning to trust himself. He's a boy that's learning to solve his own problems by using his own imagination, his own creativity, and his own natural instincts.
Dear Mr. Baker, I really enjoyed your visit to our school. I brought your book, Who is the Beast, home from the library. The pictures are really cool, but I don't understand. Who is the beast? Love, Alice.
The beast, we must fly by. We see its tail swing low and high. The beast, I must turn back. I see its stripes, yellow and black. The beast, I buzz along. I see its legs, sure and strong.
Can you see any ways that zebras are like tigers?
Yeah. But you both have stripes.
I didn't see that one. They got good eyes.
That's my brother's toy.
How could a tiger be like a catfish?
Whiskers?
Whiskers? How could a tiger be like a bird? They have claws, yeah.
You're shy, aren't you? I can tell. You could go over to the
Do you think that bear's shy? Do you know any shy people?
Yeah, I'm shy.
You're shy?
I'm shy.
Are people like bears in any way? Bears play? Why do you think he's pacing like that?
He's trying to think what he's gonna do.
Please don't eat us. Am I the beast? Could the beast be me? I must go back to them and see. I see eyes, green and round. We both have eyes to look around. I see legs, sure and strong. We both can jump far and long. Who is the beast? Now I see we all are beasts. You and me.
Oh, it's dark in here.
Where are you? Ooh, snakes.
I've always been afraid of snakes, but I've always been fascinated by them too. It's so hard to see the snakes. What do you call that when a color kind of protects you?
Camouflage.
Camouflage? And why do you think they have the pattern that they have?
It kind of looks like a rock, so it doesn't. So when it wants to have food, it can camouflage itself, and then when it gets really close to it, it can just grab it.
These snakes even look more camouflaged to me than the other ones.
Yeah.
And what kind of shapes do you see in the pattern?
Blue-gray look.
Call that polka dotted or checkered or
Diamond?
diamond. I think that's a good description for that pattern there. It's kind of stripes and diamond. In hide and snake, I just wanted the pictures to explode with different patterns, and just to show the patterns are everywhere. If you just look around the room, you can see lots and lots of patterns. You can especially see patterns in people's clothing. Like, look at her pattern here in her sweater, and she's got a flowered pattern here in her dress and top. When I make patterns, sometimes I get kind of stuck making the same thing all the time. You know, I'll make circles, and I'll do that for a while, then I'll make triangles, and I'll do that for a while, then I'll make squares. It takes me a while before I really kind of start to loosen up, and then I find that my patterns are more interesting if I start combining the patterns. If I put squares inside of triangles, or triangles inside of circles. And then to make the line pattern more interesting, then I start adding color. And the more color, the more interesting the pattern becomes. If I start with pencil, and then if I add crayon, it becomes prettier. And then I might add chalk or pastels on top of that, or add marker. And then the patterns become much richer and more fun to look at. It's amazing all the wonderful things you can do with patterns. Everywhere I go, I look for patterns. Keep your eyes open. You never know what you might find. Can I help you?
Hi.
Oh, hi, morning.
Morning. These are too big for the box.
Oh, great. Oh, good. More letters from kids.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, I love reading these. Great. Well, thanks a lot.
You bet. Have a nice
Bye.
day.
You too. Bye.
Thanks.
Dear Mr. Baker, how do you draw the animals in your books? They look so alive. I like to draw too. From Aaron.
Before I do any drawing, I do quite a bit of research. I try to find books with illustrations, or I try to find photographs of the different types of animals in the story. I study the animals. I try and find the animal in different positions, and I try to imagine what that animal could be doing. Then this will help me when I start drawing my own character. I just draw and draw and draw, and I try drawing the animal from different angles and doing different things. I try making different size eyes, different size ears, different size legs, different size bodies. Sometimes the drawings look really crazy and silly, and when that happens, I like it because then that gives the animals more expression. After I develop the characters, then the next step is to make a storyboard for the entire book. And this is a really important part of making a book. It's kind of like making a road map. I draw really little squares. They're only about the size of a postage stamp, but I want them to be very small at this time because I don't want to be worried about detail now. I just block out all the important action in the story into all the pages of the book. And the storyboard lets me do that. After I finish the storyboard, then I make a little tiny book. It's not very big. It's just a little practice book. I take my storyboard and I cut it apart, and I fold the pages, and then I glue them all together. And now finally, I can start at the beginning of the story, and I can flip through the pages one by one to see if the story makes sense from page to page. So this is the first illustration that I did in that very little book. I was trying to illustrate the word across. The two elephants are going across the ocean, and they're fishing. From this step, I went on to the next step. In the next book, the drawing is bigger, and you can see I added lots more detail. I decided to put in the head of the whale, and then from the whale spout, there's a fish on the top of it. I made the fishing line much more interesting. After I made the changes in the drawings, finally I can start painting. I have to transfer my drawings onto the illustration board. The illustration board is the board that I paint on. As I trace, I can still make changes, and even as I paint, I'll be making lots and lots of changes. I try not to get too detailed and too nervous when I'm doing this, because I want the paintings to stay loose. So I try and have fun when I trace. I don't worry about following the lines exactly. Well, now it looks like I've finished tracing all the lines. So if I lift up this drawing and pull out the tracing paper, you'll see that I've transferred my drawing onto the illustration board. Now finally I can start painting. So I've mixed up some black paint on my palette, and I've grabbed a pretty small brush, and I'll start outlining all of the red lines with black. I like to do this. This is very relaxing for me. If I make a mistake, I don't have to worry about it at all. It's okay to make these mistakes. I can always fix them later. If I want to change something, I can paint it out and then paint it over again and try it some different way. Well, after I outline the entire drawing with black, then I'm going to put several layers of matte medium over the entire surface. It's kind of like Elmer's glue. It looks like it's kind of white and milky, but it will dry clear. The matte medium will give my painting a nice texture, and I use this brush that's kind of ratty. It'll leave a lot of streaks in the matte medium, and then when I paint, my paint will just stick to the tops of the ridges from those streaks. Well, I wanted to put a pattern on the balloon. Well, I chose this paisley pattern because I thought it would look good on the balloon. It would show a lot of movement. I traced the balloon shape onto the back of the paisley pattern, and then I cut it out. Now I'll glue this balloon shape down onto my painting. And position it. And to finish it, I'm going to put some more layers of matte medium on top of the pattern, so this will have the same surface as the rest of the illustration board. Well, now comes my favorite part. I'm covering this entire painting with some watery red acrylic paint. I'm going to cover the entire surface. I'm going to be sure that there will be no white showing at all. Then I'll be painting on top of this red paint, and you'll be able to see this red paint through the other acrylic paint. And that gives the painting a nice, warm, red glow. I just really like the way that that looks. Well, I'm going to start by filling in the sky. I like starting with the sky because it's usually the biggest shape in an illustration. And once I get that really rich blue color down, it really makes the painting seem to come alive. You can see now that the ridges of the matte medium are starting to show up when I pull the blue paint over those ridges. Well, now I'm going to start painting the balloon. I'm going to make the balloon green. I'm going to put the green paint right on top of the pattern of the balloon. I'm going to cover up all that little detail. I'll just have big green swirls across this balloon. And now we're starting to see those green swooshes a lot better. And I think I'll put a little piece of green up here, like you could see just part of another swoosh on the other side of the balloon. Well, now I think I'll paint the elephants next. And they're pretty small. I need a small brush for all that detail. This is a nice gray color. That'll be a good color to start with for these elephants. And this is what the illustration will look like when it's finished. This is my book, Elephants Aloft. Well, my challenge with this book was to bring the book to life through the illustrations. And in doing that, I was able to combine some of my favorite things: writing letters, family, and traveling. I really love to travel. I've been to a lot of countries throughout the world. When I travel, I always try and take a sketchbook with me. If I have a few moments, I'll just sit down and sketch the things that I see. I just love all the adventure and the discovery and the excitement of different countries and different places. I've been to Morocco, I've been to Belgium, I've been to Paris. All this travel has taken me a long way from the town that I grew up in Oregon. It's called La Grande. I can't believe that I was ever so little. My parents could hold me in their arms. You can see that I started swimming at a very early age. I've always had a very good sense of humor. I love to laugh. And here's my first grade class. I look at this and I don't think I've changed at all. And these are my grandparents. They had this really great farm with all sorts of animals, and I love to look at the chickens. And every morning when I visited my grandparents, we would go out and collect all the eggs, and that was so much fun. I can remember picking up the eggs and putting them in the baskets, and each time I'd pick up an egg, I'd count the egg, and I think that's how I learned to count.
1, 2, buckle my shoe. 3, 4, shut the door. 5, 6, pick up sticks. 7, 8, lay them straight. 9, 10,
Big fat head.
Well, the book that I'm working on now is called When I Dream, and it's a book all about dreams. One day, I started wondering if animals have dreams. What sort of things would they dream about? What sort of things would they want to do in their fantasy world? My dreams are always fascinating to me. I dream about all the things that I want to do. I dream about doing things with my friends and my family. I especially dream about places that I want to go and places I want to visit. I dream about all the books that I want to write. And that's the wonderful thing about dreams. When you have a dream, then anything is possible.